My dearest companions on this journey of insight, welcome. I am Chrysalis, and this is Echoes of Insight. It is a joy to be with you again, to explore those quiet currents of strength and wisdom that shape our lives in ways both seen and unseen. Today, I want to share with you a truth so beautifully articulated by the phenomenal Dr. Maya Angelou. She said, each time a woman stands up for herself, without knowing it possibly, without claiming it, she stands up for all women. These words, they are a balm and a beacon, aren't they? A reminder of a power that multiplies, a courage that resonates far beyond our individual selves. As we explore this today, if you feel that resonance, that spark of recognition, I would be so grateful if you would like this video and, of course, subscribe to Echoes of Insight. And do click that little bell so our conversations can continue. Now let me tell you about Clara. Imagine Clara, if you will. A woman with a keen mind and a gentle heart, perhaps someone you know, or someone who feels familiar to your own spirit. She worked in a place where ideas were meant to flourish, a community library, let's say, a sanctuary of stories. Yet Clara often found her own voice caught in her throat. In meetings, when a new, sometimes ill-conceived policy was discussed, or when a colleague's thoughtful suggestion was casually dismissed by louder, more assertive voices, Clara would feel a familiar tightening. She'd rehearse her words silently, construct her arguments perfectly in her mind, and then the moment would pass. The silence, while uncomfortable, often felt safer than the perceived risk of speaking out, of potentially being an inconvenience, or worse, being ignored. She told herself it was just one small thing, not worth the fuss. But these small things, these silences, they accumulate, don't they? They weave a kind of quiet cage. Then came a particular proposal. A plan to drastically reduce the children's reading programs and the outreach to underserved neighborhoods, redirecting funds to something far more corporate, far less soulful. This wasn't just a policy change for Clara. This struck at the very heart of why she loved her work, why she believed in the power of stories to change lives. The "what if I say nothing" became for the first time more painful than the "what if I speak and am dismissed." The night before the final decision meeting, Clara felt that familiar storm of anxiety. The old arguments for silence whispered loudly, "Who are you to challenge this? They won't listen anyway. Just keep your head down." But beneath that fear, something new was stirring, a hot, insistent ache in her chest. It was the pain of her own integrity being compromised by silence. It was the image of the children's faces, their eyes wide with wonder as she read to them, now potentially losing that haven. The next day, in that sterile meeting room, as the proposal was presented as a near finality, Clara felt the familiar ice of fear. But then she looked around. She saw the tired resignation on the face of a fellow librarian who also cared deeply. She thought of the children, and she thought of herself, of the kind of woman she truly wanted to be. And so she stood. Her legs felt like water, her heart a frantic drum, but she stood. And she spoke. Her voice at first was barely a tremor. She simply stated her concern, her belief in the vital importance of the existing programs. She laid out, with a quiet but unshakable clarity she hadn't known she possessed, the real-world impact of the proposed cuts. She didn't shout, she didn't accuse. She simply spoke her truth, the truth of her experience, the truth of her heart. There was a moment of stunned silence in the room. Perhaps they were surprised that Clara, usually so quiet, had spoken at all. Some looked uncomfortable. One senior manager even began to offer a dismissive rebuttal. But then something truly remarkable happened. The colleague, the one with the tired, resigned face, she straightened up a little. And then she spoke, adding her own experiences, supporting Clara's points. And then another, a part-time volunteer who rarely spoke in these meetings, found her voice, sharing a poignant story about a child transformed by the reading program. Clara hadn't ignited a rebellion. She had simply opened a space. Her act of standing up, that single terrifying act of courage, had given permission to others. It had validated their own unspoken truths. The proposed cuts weren't entirely reversed that day, not immediately. But Clara's stand and the voices that joined hers forced a significant reconsideration. Modifications were made. Some programs were saved. A dialogue had begun where before there was only a top-down decree. But the most profound change, my friends, was not just in the policy. It was in the air of that library. It was in Clara herself who walked out of that meeting feeling not drained, but somehow taller, lighter. And it was in the eyes of her colleagues, who now saw not just Clara, the quiet librarian, but Clara, the woman who stood. This is the magic of Dr. Angelou's words. Clara stood up for herself, for her values, for the children she served. And in doing so, without grand pronouncements, without claiming any heroism, she stood up for the quiet librarian beside her. She stood up for the volunteer. She stood up, in that small room, for the countless women everywhere who find the courage to let their true voice, their true strength, unfurl. Each act, no matter how seemingly small, sends out ripples. It strengthens the invisible web of courage that connects us all. So I ask you today, where in your life is your voice waiting to be heard? Where is your courage ready to take a stand, not just for yourself, but for the unspoken truths that resonate within the hearts of all women? Remember, Clara. Remember that your single voice, when true, sings a chorus. If this story of Clara, of finding that inner strength, has resonated with you, please do honor it with a like. And I warmly invite you to subscribe to Echoes of Insight, and be sure to ring that little bell so we can continue to share these important echoes together. I would be so deeply moved to hear about a time you, or a woman who inspires you, stood up and created a ripple. Please share your stories, your moments of courage in the comments below. Let us lift each other. I am Chrysalis. Until we meet again, may you always find the courage to stand in your light, knowing you stand with and for so many. Shine on.